And good evening, everybody, on this amazing Sabbath day.
Welcome to the interview room on our Sunday Night Live. We are so happy you are here with us.
And we're excited for tonight's show. My goodness. We've got a barn burner for you. And Karen, how about shout out to aisle 12 with ER?
Yes, we want to give a shout out to Liz, one of our TIR subscribers. We ran into her and she was so kind and sweet. It was wonderful meeting you, Liz. So thank you. Thank you for being a subscriber and being with the interview room all this time.
And also Grandma Nancy in Nebraska, Grandma Carol in Michigan, and all of our friends and family around the world. If you're at home by yourself right now, not anymore. You're in the interview room, and we're grateful to be in your house.
And we also want to thank our amazing mods. These ladies do an incredible job keeping chat classy and a warm and welcoming place that you guys want to be. So thank you to Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Teresa M, and Laura Waldy. Thank you so much, ladies.
Yep. 1,000%. We can't do it without our mods, without our subscribers, and our YouTube channel members and our Patreon members. And we only ask one thing on this channel, and that one thing is if you would just hit that like and subscribe button, and then share this on your social media platforms, and then put your seatbelts on and enjoy the program, because we've got one heck of a program for you tonight. Karen, who's here?
Well, we will be welcoming in the Cold Case Foundation Executive Director, Greg Cooper, and the Deputy Executive Director, Dean Jackson. Super excited to have them here.
And you'll notice that one is wearing a hat tonight and the other isn't, because if Greg didn't wear a hat, they would be reflecting off of one another.
Thank you very much.
So kind.
How are you guys?
Great to be here with you.
Good to see you.
This is a real honor to be with you guys tonight. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, welcome back. It's been a while. So
yes,
nice to have you, Greg and Dean. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate the risk you've put yourself at bringing us on board. You never know what's going to happen, what we're going to say.
And that's part of the excitement.
Yeah. And it's not like we see you every week, so this is all brand new stuff for us. And so I'm just going to run a quick bio here on each of you. And, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Greg. Number one, I've known Greg for many, many years. I mean, it just, how long have we been friends?
Well, I'm thinking it's close to 30, I think.
Yeah, a couple of weekends. And
I think so.
Both of these guys were just recently at our son's wedding, and that's how close we are. And I can tell you this, every time I'm sitting with the two gentlemen above me, I learn something. And it's just always an honor to be in Greg's presence and Dean's, but to listen to him and the vast amount of knowledge that he has, and it's connected with a tremendous amount of humility. you'll notice he has never opined up until I asked him like 4 or 5 times to weigh in
We hounded you guys.
on
What's going on?
on Guthrie, and he kept on saying, "Not yet, bud. We're not yet." And so we've got him here tonight, everybody. And where are you ever going to find the former chief of the behavior? It was the BAU or the behavior science unit at the time, Greg?
Well, at the time, it was the investigative support unit, which eventually they changed the name to the behavioral science unit. And now I think it's the behavioral sciences services unit. I think they changed it probably 3 times at least, or 4 times since I was there.
Okay. And you give everybody a little bit about your background and what you did at Quantico, and you managed the VICAP. And of course, you were also in the profiling unit with John Douglas at the time and others. And run that up the flagpole for everybody.
Sure. I think I would be what you might consider the 2nd or 3rd generation of profilers. I don't know where they are right now. But my mentors were the likes of John Douglas, Roy Hazelwood, Ken Lanning, Roger Depew. And those men, in my estimation, were the true pioneers, particularly John Douglas, who has a lot of notoriety, obviously, and has really put profiling as we know it today on the map. He's what I would refer to as the father of modern day profiling. He would be probably compared to literature. If you're looking at literature, I'd say he's the Sherlock Holmes of profiling. He would be, but in reality. So anyway, those are the people that trained me. I was on my fifth year in the FBI. I was privileged to be assigned to go back. My only interest in going to the FBI was to become a profiler, and I was fortunate for that to happen so soon. So at my 5-year mark, I was given that opportunity and worked in the Northwest Territory of the United States as a profiler. And then within about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I was asked by John to supervise the violent criminal apprehension program and continue to profile. So I kept my profiling position and then worked as the violent criminal apprehension program manager. Also as his relief supervisor. And in addition to that, I was teaching at the FBI National Academy in the area of criminal psychology and what we referred to then as criminal investigative analysis, which is profiling. It's the same thing. And then working as John's relief supervisor, meaning that when he was out of town or was busy in other activities and responsibilities, I would function in his capacity. And he left a little bit prematurely. He still had, I think, 27 years, I think. I can't remember exactly how long. But medically, he decided to leave. He was having some difficulties and kind of a reoccurrence of some problems that he had many, many years before with the blood clotting from the viral cephalitis attack that he had when he was working on the Green River case.
Yeah, so, a lot of people don't know that he took sick on that one.
Oh yeah, it almost killed him. He was out of assignment for about a little over 6 months, I believe, before he came back to his position. And it was 2 weeks, I think, in a coma, 10 days to 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It's the account of that experience is in Mindhunter. It explains that, the first book that he wrote. So when John left, because I happened to be his relief supervisor, I functioned as the acting unit chief for about almost a year before I left. So,
and you brought in who? Mary Ellen O'Toole, right?
I did. I should say when I brought her in, I signed off on Mary Ellen O'Toole. She had a tremendous reputation in the Bureau and had done a lot of great work for us in the profiling area in San Francisco. I think San Francisco office, if I remember right. And so there were a number of others that came in. I left about 1995. So it's been a long time ago.
Yeah, and then also tell the audience a little bit about some of the cases you were weighing in on at the time in your tenure in the Bureau there, in terms of in the BAU.
We had the ones that had probably the most notoriety that I participated in was Oklahoma City bombing, also Ruby Ridge, and then a lot of course, generically, a lot of serial killer cases, serial rape cases, but in terms of notoriety, those would be the two largest cases at the national scale. And as the audience may or may not be aware, is that profilers work, and I don't know what it's like today, but the profilers back in that day worked unsolved homicides, of course, and serial killers, serial rapists, and also arson and bombing cases. So we also specialized in the area of arson and bombing and had a specialized program for that. So in the investigative support unit, we had 3 different programs. The first one was the criminal investigative analysis program, which was the program that consisted of all the criminal profilers in those areas of serial homicide, sexual assault, etc., and violent crime. And then the other program was VICAP, Violent Criminal Apprehension Program. And the other program was ABIS, or Arson Bombing Investigative Services Program. And that consisted of a number of profilers who specialized in just arson and bombing cases. So we worked obviously very closely together and participated in cases together, joining forces as necessary. We believe, as the foundation, and it's very similar to the philosophy that we had then, and one that we have carried forth in the Cold Case Foundation. We strongly believe in the Mayo Clinic approach. And to my knowledge, and certainly my own personal experience, I don't know of any particular case that has been solved exclusively by one person, at the exclusion of everybody else. What we do is participate in solving cases, and we make that contribution consistent with whatever our area of specialization is to all those other people that contribute to it. And like in the Mayo Clinic, we take experts from various fields to sit down and review a case based upon their area of expertise and specialization. And amazingly, we come up with answers to questions and strategies to cases and profiles, et cetera, based upon a conglomeration of interests, skills, abilities, and knowledge that people have developed over many, many years of experience. We don't rely upon any one person. It's like when people ask us, hey, how many cases have you solved? You know, personally, I don't like that. I don't like the question, because it tries to set any one person aside by themselves to receive credit for the solution of a case. Well, there is no person that solves a case by themselves. So I personally take offense to that question, because it's inappropriate. As you know, so many cases over the years, the older cases, particularly these cold cases that we work, you solve a cold case, it's because of all the work that's been done historically in that case by many, many people. many detectives, many specialists in different areas. Now it's brought together, and maybe now there's new scientific advancements that have been made, or profiling maybe take an issue with it. An investigator may see something based upon their experience and have a complete different observation that now may just tweak it just a little bit. And together, I'm convinced we can solve cases generally if they're worked, but they must be worked constantly until it's solved. I'm getting off the weeds here, which is easy to do.
You're fine. I mean, that's what brought the foundation together. I mean, you and John essentially, kicked off the foundation, and you've got this sidekick right next to you, another amazing human being, Dean. And, let me tell the public a little bit about Dean. He has focused on trainings across the nation for not only homicide, cold case investigations, but he's also brought a unique set to Operation Lady Justice, which was the task force that was assembled for missing and murdered American Indians and Alaskan Natives. Dean was and has been a crucial partner to Greg and others on the team in training those. And he's also an accredited instructor for the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. Am I right there, Dean? Did I get that one right? Yep. And
also pathologist.
And pathologist, yeah. I mean, he's
coroner, not a pathologist.
Oh, coroner. Okay.
And so, again, another humble individual that, quite frankly, we could spend a whole hour just reading your bios. But the good news, everybody, is they have books. Those books are in the links below. And the one thing that I am always honored to call them friends is because they will not tell you what I just said, okay, unless I ask them to say it. They are like pulling teeth sometimes for them to get to talk about themselves. But that is what makes them great. And we have how many experts now approximately in the foundation worldwide, internationally?
Between 220 and 250 right now that are officially on the website, and a lot more trying to get on. So,
okay. And in those is the best of the best, still trying to figure out, how we can do better with some of the cold cases that are out there. And these two guys, along with John, who is our emeritus executive director, and he's going to be appearing in CrimeCon coming up.
That's right.
Coming up here. So
he's actually emeritus chairman of the board.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for people who might be new subscribers or just finding the interview room, Dean, tell everybody just the high level overview of what the Cold Case Foundation does, and just kind of how you guys, how cases come to you, the different ways.
So we have basically three primary ways that we get cases. And I think when we first started out, because we had limited resources, and as well as we were kind of an unknown quantity other than people's bios and their resumes, we got a lot of cases early on from families who, were just frustrated, looking for more help, more support. But interestingly enough, our very first case that we ever got as a foundation officially came from a police department. And we got to participate in that, and that case was solved. Over the years, it has evolved, and I would say now large majority of our cases are coming directly from either law enforcement agencies or prosecutors who are either asking us to take a look at a case and give it another set of eyes and review it, or maybe they'll ask us to come on board and support them It really varies. We have Greg and I kind of call it the smorgasbord of resources that we make available to both law enforcement and primarily to families. We will help also if we do get defense attorneys every once in a while. We don't have a lot of those, but every once in a while we're reached out to about possibly an innocence project, and we'll take a look at it and potentially get involved in that. But majority of them are coming from law enforcement. So when we get those cases, we can do everything from it can be as simple as a Zoom call where we pull a few team members together and they ask for input. I always refer to law enforcement as a very proprietary world, and we try to provide an open source resource to them in that proprietary world. What we mean by that is they can confidentially come to the team, present as much or all of their case as they want to, but we have experts there in real time who actually are able to answer questions and also feed off of each other. So, in normal cases, unless there's a task force that's really highly funded, detectives are, Chris, you know this better than anybody, you're constantly popping from one expert to another. So you've got a question for the ME, you've got a question maybe for somebody in forensics, you've got a question over here with another investigator. So you're constantly moving around to all this. Well, by bringing everybody together, as Greg describes in the Mayo Clinic, they're all there together. And what that does is for us is it cuts down on one, chasing rabbits down holes that we don't need to go down. So I give you an example of that. We may be in a case and somebody brings up and says, well, I think that this case is maybe an example of X, Y, or Z. And the medical examiner says, no, and I'll tell you why. Here's the medical reasons why that can't be the case here. Well, you've just shut something down that could have taken everybody for the next how many hours or days or weeks or months because we've got the facts right there. We're not waiting for that to catch up. On the flip side of it, I call it the popcorn moment. I'm showing my age, but I remember as a kid growing up, you used to watch your mom maybe do popcorn on the stove, especially with the one where you could see, or on the counter where you could see it. And you're just sitting there waiting, is this thing going to ever pop? It just seems like it sits there and sits there. And then all of a sudden they all go off. And that moment is usually in our cases where somebody makes an observation and you can almost see it. People go, well, wait a minute. If that's true, then what about this and this? And people begin to feed them. So I think it's one of the really incredible strengths of the foundation. And we bring people from so many different disciplines and expertise. And it's not just one. So we're not just saying, well, we want one medical examiner or we want one investigator. I think anytime you can get multiple people in a field beginning to really talk about things and really lay it out there and get into the real details of why it could or couldn't be, it really changes the conversation. And so that's an aspect that we do with all the cases. And the agencies typically determine how long we're going to be involved. So it could be as simple as a one and done. We have agencies that we've been embedded with. We've sent team members there on site. Chris has been on site, multiple locations for us. But then also it may be that we meet with them once a month, once every 2 weeks, weekly, whatever they need for us to be able to bring to the table to help support them. And then we also bring experts to the table based on needs. So we may start out with a smaller group, but as the case unfolds, we realize, oh, well, we need somebody over here. We've got one case, I think they have about 20 sworn officers. I think I'd have to go back and check for sure, but I see somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 36 experts have come in. Now they're not all sitting there at one time, but we're rotating them in. Or something develops in the case that all of a sudden now we need somebody who's an expert in polygraph, or maybe something comes up in DNA that we've got to do that. We also work really hard to try to understand what are the latest technologies and things that we can help pass on. And so we try to look at the foundation as a place where people can come to us, and it's not that we have all the answers, but we have the people with the network behind them that so far, and I'm not saying it won't ever happen, but so far between what we have in-house and the network behind every one of those people, I would give an example. Chris is on our team, but Chris has a value because of his expertise. Chris also has a value because of just unbelievable network that he has, that he's built over all these years, people that he knows, that he trusts. And so we're able to tap into that in a way that I think is pretty amazing and bring these resources to bear. We also have a group that works on research and trying to find out, we're looking at different research projects, understanding these individuals and trying to find information that can be very helpful and useful to investigators. So all of that, is part of what we do. And at the end of the day, though, it's really up to the agency to determine how much and how often and, how far they want us to go. So.
And I also think it's worth noting that this is all done pro bono. All of your experts come on and you do the work, however many weeks, months, years, perhaps.
Yep.
There's, this isn't anything that costs anybody anything to tap into these experts. And, in this day and age, you really don't hear that very often.
No, they really do have a unique heart and mind, that they've committed to this cause. And what's the cause? The cause are victims.
Yeah.
And we, that's who our primary client are the victims.
Sure. And, there, of course, there really is, most people say there's no such thing as closure, but maybe some resolution, or maybe, I don't know, satisfaction doesn't do it justice.
Well, I think a good place to start is answers. I think what families want are answers. And the answers can be that everything that can be done, it has been done to this point based upon all of the technologies and things, and that we're willing to keep looking at it as new things develop. So even in the arena of DNA, one of the questions we ask all the time when DNA comes to the table is, well, was it tested, and how was it tested, and how long ago was it tested? Because we may be able to come back and take multiple bites at the same apple. I was on a call the other day with someone, and they were talking about, a test. And they said, if we don't get certain answers, then we'll have to wait. And so I just asked the question. I said, is this kind of like as technology develops? Before we used to talk about nanos, and now we're talking about picos. So are you saying that maybe down the road there's something else? And the lady started laughing, and she says, yeah, Dean, she said, I've got a new word for you. And I said, what's that? And she said, femto, because she said, that's the next level. And so as this technology develops, we're able to keep coming back around. And so for us, part of it is, has everything that's been done, can be done, is it done? And then second is, what do we have in a holding pattern waiting for technology to kind of catch up and help us make that next level? And the other thing I'll just throw out is that, as an organization, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. And so, I would love to say it doesn't cost money to do things. We still have things that we have to raise money for. And, our goal, part of the struggle we have, because we have a lot of people currently that work with us and for us that are in other agencies. And so our ability at some point to be able to at least stipend people to take this to another level, because one of the hard parts, I think, for Greg and I is that we're able to step up and say, yes, we can provide these resources, but we don't have the ability, because we're dependent upon people's schedules, to be able to say, yeah, and we'll get that for you in the next week. Sometimes it takes a little longer than we would anticipate. But to Greg's point, it's the belief and passion that the people have that are working with us that make it possible for us to do what we're doing. So.
Yeah, that's why I got you here tonight, because the Nancy Guthrie thing situation, there's a family out there.
Yeah.
And, this is such a unique scenario that I thought, why not bring the best on? And here you are. Now, one interesting thing for the audience, there is a book. There's a couple books out there. One is about the Cold Case Foundation that Greg is the author of, and you can find that on Amazon. But we have another one coming, and hopefully it's going to get to the publisher soon. But that is a book that all of the proceeds, 100%, go directly to the foundation. And it's going to help support these families who are in need, because ultimately, as the foundation, continues to function as a 501c3, your support in maybe, picking up that book as it comes out, and it's on the horizon. So I will tell you, we can't talk too much about it because it's not here yet, but I can tell you it is on the horizon, and it's going to be a really good read. It's not only about a history of the foundation as a whole, but it's also principles of investigation, medical examiners, DNA. I think, what do we have, like 16 authors, correct? Or something like that, right?
Yeah, they're all, I think they're all members of the foundation.
Yeah. And so you're going to love it. And it's going to be a home run. So I saw some things going by in the chat saying, how can we support? That is also one way that you can support. And then you can also go over to the foundation, Cold Case Foundation, and just type that in Google. And then there's a donation button.
We'll put a link in the description below.
Yeah.
The show.
Okay. That said, first of all, each of you have been involved in analyzing hundreds and hundreds of cases, for 50 years almost. Okay. I'm not going to date Greg and I. I mean, Dean's still the youngster here in the pod. No, I'm teasing. But I first question overall. And by the way, the audience, if you have a question, just throw it up and I'll get to them over time. But I want to really give the time to Greg and to Dean, to talk about their analysis, what they have learned, what they know, and how that applies to the Nancy Guthrie case, because there's a lot of information out there. But I want to tap into, as if this was a regular, we're going to throw the wall here, and this is what we call it, because when we're sitting down with an agency, one of us is assigned as a case agent, hypothetically. And then we liaison with that agency, and then we have the agency present what the potential problems or the challenges are in their investigative process. And on that wall, there could be, like Greg was talking about, we call it the Mayo Clinic approach, where you may have a medical examiner, you may have a forensic psychologist like Gary, like Larry, you may have a DNA like Francine Bardot, and the list goes on. And everybody gets an opportunity in that agency to question these experts and have them think outside of the box. Okay. And, this case stands out as pretty unique. So I want to ask you, and Greg, I'll start with you. What really stands out right now for you? And I know you have not really invested a lot of time in this because, one, you haven't had it because you're doing other things. But you've, obviously the news monitoring, but what stands out almost right away in the abduction of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie?
Well, when we look at any case, the first thing we should look at is what we refer to as victimology. And her victimology is unique in as much as individually, exclusively looking at her and her lifestyle, who she is personally. There's nothing that would attract that type of interest to kidnap her for considering her personal lifestyle in and of itself, not giving consideration to her association her family, and other influencing factors out there, because she'd be looked upon as low risk, her lifestyle, very low risk. So what is it about Nancy that would attract an offender who would have this interest and motivation to kidnap her? What would be that motivation? So you've got to look first at her personal lifestyle and what was going on in her life proximate to the time in which the crime was committed. And the interesting thing about this case that stands out is individually, by herself, she would be considered low risk, which tells us something about the potential relationship between she and the offender. The lower risk an individual, the higher the probability is that she will know the offender, but it's particularly the offender knows her. She's been targeted for a particular reason. Now, when we say she knows the offender, she may know that offender very closely, intimately, all the way up to a casual acquaintance. But our presumption is based upon that she's been targeted by the offender. So then we look at, all right, what's the environment, the situation, the circumstances surrounding her life that will affect that risk level from low risk? Does anything happen that will begin to elevate her risk level to other considerations and potential offenders? And what's attracting their interest to her to kidnap her? And the only thing that we're left with to look at, not the only thing, but a primary thing to consider, of course, is the notoriety that she has because of her daughter. So that's the first thing that you would begin to consider. And so as you consider these different activities and options and the way in which it was done and where it was done, there's a large familiarity, distinct familiarity between the offender, the location, the offender, and Nancy, the offender, and the awareness of her situation, her circumstances, her environment, her relationships. And they have identified her because she, in their estimation, most likely, she's the goose with the golden egg because of her association, not because of anything she's done individually, but because of the relationships possibly that she's had. Now, it's certainly possible that she's offended somebody, in her interaction, and she's lived there for many, many years. She knows a lot of people. She's come across a lot of people. And certainly that can bring the attention and unwanted attention just through those interactions of individuals that have other interests in establishing that relationship with her and the purposes for it. But the probabilities, we're always dealing with possibilities. And what we're trying to do is eliminate all the possibilities, mostly to probabilities. So we're not wasting investigative resources and time to be able to focus on those probable and potential offenders and what their primary motivation was and what drew their attention to her.
Greg, I want to just ask you, when you say the golden goose, tell us more about that. Like, to me, that may have some financial implications, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, it is. I mean, typically a kidnapping is conducted for the purpose of financial reward. And an 84-year-old woman, unless it's a personal vendetta against her particularly, it's most probable that she's somehow connected to a pool of resources where they can find that benefit and acquire that benefit because of her association and connection to that pool of resources.
Okay. Dean, same question. What initial 30,000 foot run on this case?
Well, I think her age is a big factor to it's kind of an unusual age. But I think in light of what Greg's just said, that may be why. I don't think we see a lot of these types of cases involving someone that age. It appears to me from just a little bit we've looked at the geography, I find the community that she lives in, this isn't like some neighborhoods. There's a little more space in between the homes. Seems like it's a little bit more laid out, and I think the environment there makes it for at least some interesting discussion. I think my first, and Greg and I have talked about this as well, but I think our big caution is really how little of detailed information we've gotten. And I mean, that says a lot about the law enforcement agency. They've kept a lot of it close to the vest. We've had cases, I can tell you this, that we've worked cases that we've started out with family or maybe somebody who really had a large commitment to that particular case. And we're given kind of a parameter of information that they had. And I'm always amazed when the doors open and we move in with the law enforcement agency and begin to really look at all the case evidence. It really is a game changer to understand. So I think there's always that concern. What is it we don't know? We haven't been told. So that information. Also, I think what is interesting is if you're going to do a kidnapping for ransom for money, why send it to a news media and TMZ? So there's just some things about this case that don't make a lot of sense. And then I think the other thing is that from the time she's last seen until the pacemaker goes off, we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood about 4 hours and 38 minutes maybe total of a time frame there. And then if you take off the amount of time from the time she's dropped off till there's something going on, it's under an hour. So the question then begins to is there anything else that puts somebody in the house right after that? So are we talking about somebody's working in this home for 4 hours plus, or are we talking about somebody's really within a very narrow time frame of less than an hour, and all of this is going down? So I think those are just questions that immediately kind of come to mind.
Okay. So Greg,
Just one other observation.
Yeah, go ahead,
Chris, about the way in which this goes down, and in terms of the communication allegedly by the offender or offenders. If we have a very organized kidnapping that's occurred, and the offender is planned this out and is experienced, very business oriented, very focused, very mission oriented, he's going to do, or she, etc., whomever it may be, is going to do this in such a manner as to bring the least amount of attention to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to contact, in this instance, directly, they're going to contact, in my estimation, the family. This is where the resources are. If finances is their primary objective, they're going to contact that family within a very short period of time after they've abducted the target, before anybody else finds out about it. They're not going to take the chance of other people finding out or discovering that she's missing. They're going to be the ones to contact that family and say, I have your loved one, and we're going to keep this between just the three of us right now. parties. Don't contact the authorities. This is what you will do if you ever want to see your loved one again. You will do this, 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 and this. And it's going to be done within a brief period of time. If you don't do exactly as I say, all deals are off. It's over. You'll never see her again. But they're not going to waste this time to get the media attention involved. That's the last thing they want to do if they're very serious about this. They want to be able to control every aspect of this thing, so it'll be successful if they know what they're doing. And in this instance, they allowed her to be discovered as missing. They didn't contact the family. And then all of a sudden, you get these public institutions that have been advised or informed about it. For what? Now they've just exposed themselves and raised their own risk level of getting all the authorities involved, because the worst thing they need is to have the authorities involved. You don't want the FBI involved. You don't want the cops involved. It's the little business program between you, me, and the target that will take care of this. And then they're in, they're out, they get what they want, and they're gone. This goes just the opposite of all that.
So because that didn't happen, Greg, what does that say to you about this? I mean, is it not a kidnapping? What does it say to you? Because it's obviously what you just explained. It's not how a normal kidnapping for ransom scenario goes down.
Well, there's other interests involved. It's probably best to put it this way. If it is a kidnapping, it's a very disorganized kidnapping. And the offender lacks experience, lacks the planning, lacks the sophistication to get in there and take care of the business that needs to be done. Because the first thing that happens is that blows up in their face. As soon as the media finds out about it, and obviously the cops find out about it, it's off. The chances of success are slim and none. And if they get caught, then they've got all the consequences that they have to go through as a result as well.
So let's go over the timeline and see what you guys are thinking. Number one, let me put this up here real fast.
Yeah, let's pick it apart a lot more.
Yeah, no, I love where you're going, Greg, already here. And as we dive into this, let's give the audience a sense of when you say suspect risk. What exactly, can you dive a little deeper into that principle?
Well, the suspect has to maintain maximum optimal control over the target. And everybody that they're going to reach out to. And the best way to do that is to, number one, convince the source that they're contacting for the financial reward. Convince them that they have control, that they have the target, that the target is alive. And they have to have maximum control over all that for this to be successful. Because the minute they begin to lose control, they raise the risk of getting caught and apprehended and losing control over that, which is going to lead ultimately to their apprehension and failure. And this happens early on. This case, as a kidnapping, was failed in the first couple days, if not sooner, because of that. They didn't control it. And that's assuming that they were the source of disclosing the information to begin with to the media. But they, anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that suspect risk level, a serious suspect is going to want to control everything they possibly can around this situation in order to ensure their success. They're trying to avoid apprehension. They're trying to avoid identification. And they're going to do all that they can to successfully escape. But escape with their objective. And they've lost control within the first day or two. It's over.
And so, in your mind, Dean, what does that mean in terms of now that the suspect has introduced the media, based off of what Greg was saying, how does that change the dynamics almost within 48 hours, like he's talking about, in your mind?
Well, the first question I have is did the suspect introduce the media? Because if the media, we're assuming that that's what happened, that the suspect's the one that introduced the media, but it's possible that somebody else is taking advantage of the circumstances and situation. And then, so I think that's the first area. I think the second area, and Greg talked about this earlier, but the victimology, these things all kind of work in tandem with one another, but the victimology helps us to understand all of her behaviors, all of the things that she does. What was her consistent patterns? How did she normally function? And in that, you're going to look at it and ask the question, if this was a kidnapping and if this person, this suspect decides to do it, was when they chose to take her and where they chose to take her the least risk for them? Or did that by itself elevate their risk? And was there something else she did that was normal that could have been identified? If it isn't, then maybe, and I'm going to make the assumption that probably for somebody at 84 years old but he's still raising his risk to go into her neighborhood, because people in neighborhoods pay attention. They pay attention to somebody who shouldn't be there, or why is that person there? I mean, in my neighborhood, I get out, we walk, we drive, and I can tell you there are moments where I look at my wife and go, that doesn't look right. What is that person doing here? Now, maybe I'm wrong, and time will show, but oftentimes it's no. That's, so when we talk about the risk of the offender, it's how high of a risk are they willing to take to accomplish what it is their mission is in that particular crime.
Okay, fair enough. So let's look at that timeline for a minute, and let's dive a little deeper into this timeline as a whole and see if anything strikes you. And thank you guys for being here. We've got almost 10,300 people here right now, and so we hope you're going to pick something up here. In fact, we know you will. Those of you who are just joining us, we got Greg Cooper and Dean Jackson from the Cold Case Foundation, and Greg was also the chief of the Behavior Science Unit at the FBI for some time. So January 31st, 5:32, Nancy takes an Uber to her daughter Annie's home. Now, we don't know who ordered that Uber. We just have this data point from the sheriff's department. At 9:48, she is dropped off back at her Catalina Foothills home by her son-in-law, and there is a data point on the garage door opening. We don't know who opened that garage door. We don't know how. It could have been an app. There's been a lot of conversations we've had on with the other panels here, as well as in the media. But that garage door was only open for 2 minutes. And then that garage closed. That was the last time Nancy Guthrie was seen alive. So at 5:32 to 9:50 p.m. is the last proof of life of Nancy Guthrie. Now, the interesting thing about that, and I want to ask you what your thoughts are, that whole time, the narrative in this right now from the sheriff was this information was provided by the family and by the forensics work that was collected. So that's the last proof of life. How do you think that strikes into a note, a ransom note that generates itself a few days later, to your point, Greg, to two media outlets?
Well, it certainly violates all reason for an offender to elevate their risk level by doing that. And it suggests my initial impression. And let me, if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of give you my philosophy a little bit here.
Yeah.
About how careful we have to be commenting on these tidbits of information that come to us by the media. Some of it's coming from the authorities, and it changes. Early on, it changed from almost day to day. And you had to question a lot of, in terms of its authenticity and accuracy and validity, because it's important to understand that all the experts that participate in commenting on those tidbits of information, they're taking bits and pieces like puzzle pieces. And unfortunately, a lot of times they're taking those puzzle pieces out of context, because we don't have a context that's been developed yet, except in this case, what they believe it to be. And that's typical. I mean, we have to do that to some extent and hypothesize and theorize about what's happened. And we just have to be very responsible about it, because understand that the offender is listening to everything that's going on out there.
Even tonight.
Even tonight. Absolutely. They're listening. And depending on what the circumstances are, they may respond and react to that information, to comments that are being made, because they want to control or at least influence the narrative. And while it looks like the investigation is going off on this avenue or down this path and this road, they now have an opportunity to do something that will take it back, so they can take back control and give the belief that it's going down another avenue. And the worst case scenario is that the victim is in a very precarious situation. They're innocent. But as far as the offender is concerned, whatever actions that they take in response to things that they may like or not like about what's being said, that may also influence the relationship with the victim, their behavior toward the victim, and decisions that they may make along the way for that investigation. Because most of the time, we're dealing with a lot of information that has not been validated and confirmed and corroborated or shared by full disclosure by the authorities. And so we're all at a very significant disadvantage as a result of that.
So, Greg, let me ask you. So we're at 100+ days into the 4th month. So far, the suspect or suspects are winning this game because there haven't been arrests. Now, of course, we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes with the investigation, how close they are to finding the suspects, how close they are to finding the vehicle or vehicles used. So are you saying that they're following along, they know they're winning so far, and let's say hypothetically, let's say Nancy's deceased at this point. I think it's very reasonable to assume that. If they're watching the coverage, could they, for example, move her potentially? Because they know where she is. Nobody else does.
Yes.
So are you saying you're saying commentators have to be careful about commenting on these tidbits of information that none of it's been verified because some of the stuff is being leaked to the public. It's not coming out through official channels, and you're saying it really can end up giving the suspect a leg up.
I think it has, and I think we've seen that happen on many, many, many cases throughout the thousands of cases that we've looked at. And you made the reference that they're winning. My impression is they've lost.
Interesting.
They've failed. They failed at what they originally intended to do. And they failed early on. And they've had to sit back and they watch what's going on. They may get some satisfaction out of seeing the continued coverage. Only them knowing the details and the truthfulness of what happened, and just be entertained by watching what's happening with all the media attention.
So you're saying
control.
You're saying it failed because this was supposed to be a kidnapping where they were going to receive money.
If it was,
that got botched somehow.
If it was, they failed.
Yeah, agree.
If that's what it was.
And if it was something else, they failed, right? I mean, if it was somebody trying to break in and get something, and maybe they didn't expect her to be there, or maybe she ends up having a medical situation. And there's a lot of things, but it went sideways. They didn't get. From everything we're hearing, there was no upside to them. So. For the people who
success, yeah.
Sounds like you have a washing machine going on behind you there, Greg.
Well, I hate.
What the heck was that noise?
I hate to admit it, but it's a problem with my computer.
I heard a washer drive by. I was like, "What the heck's going on?"
Something internally is going on here, and as you can tell, I'm not a technician.
No, you're fine. That was fine. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. This is a fascinating conversation. Okay, so 147 doorbell camera disconnects, tampered with by a masked armed individual. This is the guy on the front porch. We're going to get to him in a couple minutes. 2:12 a.m. movement detected near the home. The sheriff didn't say that if it was inside or outside, but he made it sound like it could have been outside. And then here's another interesting piece of this, is at 2:28, the pacemaker app that Nancy has, her pacemaker, disconnects from a phone, which led everybody into the likely abduction theory.
Right, that she would have been separated from her Apple Watch app, meaning she was probably being taken out of the house and out of range.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, one of the anomalies most recently that we talked about here on this channel is initially, the sheriff has stuck with 11:56. The family goes on scene, but he also has said sometime just before 11 or around 11-ish. And, we reached out to some of our, connections, and you guys know how I operate. And they said it was closer to 11 a.m. So, and that's from a law enforcement individuals. And so I'm running with 11 a.m. that the family arrived at the house. And it was shortly thereafter, Nancy's friends call and say, "Hey, Nancy did not show up this morning for our church service. And we think that's suspicious." And the family ran over there. That would be the daughter and her son-in-law to look for mom. And then the sheriff reports at 12:03, the first 911 calls comes in, and it takes about 10 or 15 minutes or 10 to 12 minutes for the first patrol guys to go on scene. So the anomaly there is we don't have a data point or the sheriff is not talking about how they got in, how the family got in. what they discovered. But we learned later through Savannah's interview on the Today Show that her sister tells her the doors were propped open. We thought there was a medical event. And none of that information has been confirmed, but that was information put out by Savannah on the Today Show, which, got me thinking, and this is my opinion, that, well, wait a minute, we don't have a data point on the garage door. So, we have one from the night before, but we don't have one in the morning. We don't know how the family found the house. The sister is saying the door was propped open in the back of the house. There's anywhere from a pot was used to the door was propped open. The sheriff is holding that back about how the family got into the house. And there was no mention from the sheriff's department about the condition the house was found in until later, where he says there was blood on the porch, and it comes back to Nancy Guthrie. But that's essentially, where it's at right now. It's radio silence from there forward up until, the last couple of days, when I want to put this back up again, where the sheriff says, on February 2nd, hey, we're going to treat this as an abduction/crime. And then he urges the neighbors to go out, start looking through video. And then the ransom note shows up, right behind all of this, which after these public statements are made, the FBI joins the investigation. And this is where we get this guy on the porch. And then right behind that, Savannah makes that plea that I was just talking about. But what was an anomaly was they started impounding vehicles. And one of the vehicles impounded was a family vehicle. And then a second vehicle impounded, which was Nancy's vehicle found inside the garage. And then there was a third vehicle that was impounded, which was a Range Rover that a total stranger was driving. And there's a lot of rumors about there's a connection back to the house through that guy, but it's not been confirmed yet. But then the other anomaly here is the sheriff's department goes over to the daughter's house in the evening and starts searching their home and starts photographing in their home. And there's even speculation that there was an alternate light source used, but we don't know that for sure. What we do know is they came out of that house with evidence bags. And so they took something out of that home. And that was the house where Nancy was supposed to have gone over and spent the evening with her family, celebrating her day. Her birthday was just a couple of days before all of this, and et cetera. Have I missed anything, Karen?
No, not till that point. I mean, there's been new developments. Again, to Greg's point, tidbits of information that have come from other media sources are reporting. One of those media sources recently was People Magazine. I mean, back in the day, People Magazine was entertainment only. I get it now. They're doing true crime. That's fine. But Greg, to your larger point, none of the new tidbits of information have been confirmed by authorities. And so that makes this case even that much more confusing about what to believe, what not to believe. Certainly Sheriff Nanos has given interviews that have said one thing one day, only to reverse it the next day. So there's just a lot of conflicting, confusing information out there.
Yeah. So that puts us into the category of, okay, well, let's look at what we know and what we can see. And that brings us to the guy on the porch. Everybody calls him Porch Guy. You made a very interesting observation. It's the first time anybody's going to hear this. There's almost 12,000 people here now. And so you're going to hear it from, I don't know, Greg. They say that Gary has a 10-pound brain. I think Greg's a 50-pounder. You know,
Yeah, it's mostly fat.
yeah.
Let's put that slide up.
Okay, so here
Jump
let's
into
go.
it.
Let's go to the porch guy, and tell me what. Now this is the short clip, and then I'll go to the longer clip.
Or
Greg,
just play it on a loop so people can watch it
I don't
while
think I
Greg
can
talks.
put it on a loop, but I'll try.
I think you can.
All right. So you've seen this a couple of times, Greg. And I want to point out a couple of things here real fast. Just notice the shadow. So I talked to an astronomer who said that it was a full moon that night, and that positioning the longitude and the latitude of the moon that night and positioning her home through GPS coordinates put that shadow about 2 a.m. in the morning with that full moon behind him. Okay. So I thought that was an interesting observation by another expert, to your opinion, right? The Mayo Clinic approach. Okay. But what struck you on this individual almost immediately?
Well, right away, he's not what I would think a guy that really knows exactly what's going on here and who's had this thing planned out, knows what his mission is all about business. He doesn't strike me as that type of a person. He's almost nonchalant, walking up into this porch. Now he's bending his head over his face, so he has some concern that there might be, maybe he has a concern that there may be a camera there that sees that can see him, so to speak, and is taking film. And so he has a concern for it, but he's not quite sure about it. To me, if this guy knows what he's doing, he already knows that camera is there, and he knows where the camera is, and he'd be going directly to that camera and removing it. He's not going to meander up to it, play around with it, try to check it out to see if it's working, go back out into the little planter area and find something to cover with that. We haven't reached that level yet, over to that point there in the sequence of events. But going back to this, he's not all about. He's not.
Tee up that other one. Hang on for a minute. I'm having
He's not all about business
with the video. It's not playing, so I'm going to have to reload the video. But keep talking while I do that.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions that he may have that he's not answered yet, and anybody that is all about business has already answered these questions before they take action on it, particularly if they want to be successful. So this is not what you'd call someone with a great deal of experience. Most likely not somebody that has committed a similar type of a crime at this level particularly. I'm not saying he hasn't committed crimes. Most likely he has committed crimes. But as it relates to this, he seems to be quite relaxed and nonchalant. He's not necessarily focused and directed, mission directed. He's working by almost the seat of his pants to see what is here in this porch area that I need to be concerned about. Is there anything here? Those are the kinds of things that strike me in terms of what his thought process is.
Okay, hang on. I'm uploading the other video real fast, Greg. Sorry.
Okay, Greg, while you're doing that, let's talk about how he was dressed.
Here
you go.
So that to me, it was the thing that struck me the most. This guy is, in my opinion, is fastidious about how he dresses, how he looks. Anybody that knows him is going to know that he habitually is concerned about what he looks like and how he presents himself. Notice that those clothes fit well. They're not baggy. He's not unkempt. He from the top to the bottom. So now here he is. He's trying to cover. Let's see, just in case he's wondering, just in case it's taken a film of me, I'm going to cover this thing up just in case. Now, just the fact that that is there, that camera is there, and then he turns around, he turns away from it, and he goes back out. He's looking around to pick something up, to come back now and conceal the visual apparatus of that camera. A guy that's all about business, in my opinion, is going to go directly to that camera and it's gone. He will remove it right now. Take no chances, because he's being filmed the whole time. This whole time he's being filmed. Now, had he taken that thing off to begin with, he wouldn't have to be worried about any of this and being captured on the film.
So what about his style here that struck out?
I mean, in terms of the clothing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he is stylish. He's concerned about what he looks like typically in his day-to-day activities, up to and including how he manicures himself. So if you take a look at that schema, all these clothes fit decently. Like I've said, they're not shoddy, they're not unkempt. He's comfortable in them. He's laid them out. He's identified what he's going to wear in this instance before he goes. He knows what he's going to wear. This wasn't haphazard, but it's because it's part of his personality. He didn't go down to the Goodwill to get these clothes, and wherever he purchased them from. Some have suggested that maybe it came from Kmart or something similar to some of the clothes that Kmart.
Walmart.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Walmart. He found something there, if that's where it was purchased, that appeals to him. The style appeals to him. It's not some raggedy face mask or ski mask. It fits well. His clothing fits well, and it's stylish. If you get closer now and start to look at the facial aspects, take a look at the face mask, the texture of the material. Again, if he spent a few dollars on this thing, and the way in which the eyes highlight his own eyes, you can see how well manicured his eyebrows are. You can also, it looks like he's either got dark eyelashes or there may be some eyeliner. If you look at his mouth, he's got a very well manicured mustache. You notice that the hair doesn't creep down into his lip. It's cut above the lip. And to me, this guy's very fastidious about how he looks, as much as anything else. It's all about style. It's about the way he conducts himself. And those are the things that you can see how his well manicured eyebrows, his eyelashes, and that face mask is not just some shoddy little face mask that he picks up. He takes time to identify one that he likes, one that has a style that he's comfortable with, and it fits his image, and that he's comfortable with.
What about the gun that he's got?
Yeah, that's really interesting. My impression of that is there's not a lot of concentration. There's not a lot of style and image about that gun in terms of coming across like a gangster of some sort. Now, I'm no expert as it related to gang members. That's not my area of specialization. And maybe there's something significant about that for the area and some of the gang members out there in the area, unbeknownst to myself. But he's more concerned about how he's dressed than he is what he's doing with that weapon. That weapon is not what I would characterize as threatening. It doesn't highlight a great deal of power and domination and control. The way in which he's carrying it in his crotch, right in front. He's not trying to hide it. It's there, but I don't think it's very effective. I don't think that, unlike the rest of his clothing, that image of power, domination, control that somebody wants to exude by even carrying a weapon, what they would do with that weapon. Are they familiar with the weapon? Can they use it? Do they know how to use it? Have they used it before? He doesn't strike me as somebody that's very versatile in that aspect.
Do you think it's just part of his costume?
I do.
Dean, what do you think?
Yeah, it strikes me as it's almost like an afterthought. It's like he got ready to go up. Every time I see this video, and I know it's easy for us to get pulled into the totality of all of this stuff we know. But when I was watching it a few times, I thought, if we didn't know that if we didn't know that she was missing, if we didn't have that narrative, and if we didn't know anything about the kidnapping ransom note that was sent to the media, let's just assume this pops up, and let's even say that it pops up on 1, 2, or 3 different homes. I don't think we would look at this, to Greg's point, as somebody who's per se a big danger to somebody. This looks to more like somebody who's kind of wandering a neighborhood. He's got tennis. It looks like he's got either tennis shoes or hiking type shoes on. He's got a backpack. We don't know what's in the backpack. But if you were out kind of meandering the area, I think what brings this thing to a whole new level for us is we have these other issues that we think are all interconnected. And it may be that this is a targeted thing and he came in there, but without more detail from the victimology and the information we have at the scene, just looking at him as a person, to Greg's point, he doesn't look to be some guy who's come there ready to take care of business. If the weapon was a big deal, he's going to have it more something down there on his side or have it tucked in somewhere. If it's a threat, that's probably the least threatening way to carry the gun. I mean, it's just, the other thought I had is, now I have seen some guys, out hunting or whatever, if they're driving, sometimes guys will slide it around and put it so it's not poking into the side of them or whatever. But usually they'll slide it back around. So the fact that, however it got in that position doesn't seem to bother him. I think a lot of guys that carry weapons, especially if they're holstering it, would have it in a different position than that.
It's not what I'd call a safe location to carry
No.
a weapon. I don't see this guy as a strong, masculine hunter, outdoorsman type of an individual. This guy is more about style and concerned about how he looks.
That's an interesting take on this that nobody has brought into the conversation. What were you going to say, Karen?
Well, I was going to say, Greg, what's your take? We see this guy, porch guy, standing on the doormat that is, to our knowledge, still there. The public, do you think the public has a right to be outraged that either Pima County Sheriff's Department and or the FBI, nobody has seemed to pull that mat and take it in for DNA evidence? What do you think of that?
I think that's an excellent point you make, Karen. I'm surprised that it is still there.
And it's blowing people's minds that it was still there days and weeks after.
Yeah.
Now we don't know if they, tested it for DNA and just left it there, but I mean, his shoes are standing on that mat,
Yeah.
and the public wants to know why that mat was not taken for DNA evidence.
Yeah. And just as a matter of crime scene investigation, all that should have been removed. And the only time it would be returned, if they had taken it and returned, it would be after the fact, after the case was completed. So that I would expect that type of thing and anything else that's removable around there that may, by transference, have any evidence on it, would have been removed for testing purposes and safekeeping, not to be contaminated, further contaminated.
And now, also, when Kash Patel when the FBI director released these photographs and this video on Twitter, he also released this picture.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's some thought that this is a second night, or, we don't know if it's before. Obviously, if it is a second night, it has to be before. Because if you look at taking in the moon consideration and all of that, it's obviously much darker behind this guy. And obviously it doesn't appear that he has, the gun or
the backpack.
And it doesn't appear he has the backpack, but it looks like he's pretty much got the same costume on.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not as clear to identify whether or not the face mask is exactly the same, but it does. It looks very similar. The fact that the weapon and the backpack are missing suggests the possibility that he's just checking things out. He's on practice duty, so to speak. He's checking it out, but he doesn't, for doing so, he doesn't seem to be, when he does come back, as we know when he was that night or that early morning, he's still looking around. So he's doing this, if it's done before, just to get a feel for what it's like. And during that process of the fantasizing and going about it and the steps that they go through before they live it out in reality, it could be just practice and not very serious practice.
Go ahead, Dean.
I was just going to say, I think it also points to the fact that, let's say that is the case, that he comes in there day or days before and does this. He's not very observant. I mean, he's not paying much attention to anything, because when he comes on the porch that next night, to Greg's earlier point, that the fact that the video camera is there and where it's located. I mean, this isn't like this thing's hidden somewhere. It's right there on the side of the door. So he got to that point before, was he just kind of casing the house from a distance? Because this looks like somebody who's walking up there and doesn't really, either that, or he knows it's there and he's going off to the side. He's trying to decide whether or not it's on. That's a possibility. But to Greg's earlier point, I think if he really knew that was there and it was going to be a problem, he would have come up there and probably even rushed it, come flying in there and just taken that thing out so it's gone.
Which would have shown a level of sophistication.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So is it fair to say, and would it be accurate to say, in your opinions, this guy's level of sophistication fits where on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the highest.
Probably 3, 4.
Okay. And so, which leads into a very interesting thought here about the style of this guy then. So, Greg, talk about, the pre-incident behavior that you would expect somebody to be looking for that would maybe, plug into this kind of personality.
Mm-hmm. 3 to 5. I'm going to change the number 3 to 5.
Fair.
There's a bowling score, by the way. There's a bowling score.
Are we taking bets? So pre-offense behavior typically has to do with discussions with people that they know about grievances that they may have, or just the interest of understanding about who Nancy is, who she's connected to, why she might be a good target. There would be some research, if you will, about the house. See, my sense is he's familiar with this house. He's been there before, most likely in a legitimate capacity, or he knows somebody who has been there before. I would think that the suspect in this case, or suspects, is going to be within the first 1 to 3 level tier associations. It's either a direct association to Nancy, or it's going to be indirect association to Nancy, of people that have found out about who she is as a result of somebody that knows her, discussions that they've had. And that first tier could be very innocuous, very innocent, having no interest whatsoever causing harm. But that other association that's listening, learning, finding out about her and who she's connected to, now that starts to take form in the mind of the offender. If not that first tier, but very well could not be. So they're familiar with it. They're familiar with who her connections are, obviously. There's going to be dry runs, a lot of surveillance. But in this case, that's what you'd expect with somebody that knows what they're doing. I don't see this individual as highly sophisticated in those dry runs because they're not very well organized and they're not experienced. That's my sense.
How about the risk that they're taking a car into this environment, Dean?
Yeah, I mean, if they're getting it anywhere close to the residence, I would think that pretty much everybody in that community, that neighborhood, is pretty familiar with a lot of vehicles. So then the question is, where does it get parked? If they park it at her place, that's going to stand out. If they park it away from her place, that's going to stand out. So then what's in proximity that a car could be driven at least close enough that then the person could walk in, still have access to things and do that. But I think a vehicle anywhere in that neighborhood that's out of place, and again, the time frame, right? 2:00 in the morning is going to stand out. I would assume, and here again, we don't know, but you would think, I know in a lot of cases, we end up with a lot of ring cameras, motion detectors. I would think there are places in that neighborhood that would have vehicles. All of those things, whether or not they activated or didn't activate, somebody who understands the neighborhood well enough and understands risk levels is going to try to mitigate that risk. They're not going to do things and function in a way that makes them more susceptible to getting caught. They're going to try to do everything they can to reduce that risk.
Greg, I want to go back and ask your assessment of the perp porch guy. If he's unsophisticated, do you think he's working alone? And if not, how many potential suspects do you think are involved in this?
I think an individual like this, it's certainly possible he could be working alone, but and those who are really sophisticated often will not work alone initially.
I'll be right back.
Sure. But this individual strikes me as somebody who is not working alone, because he's not overly confident and sophisticated in this. And so that in and of itself elevates the risk level. Anytime you get somebody else involved in your activities, your criminal activities, you elevate your risk level of exposure and disclosure and confessions by the other individual if they're ever identified, etc. So I think because there seems to be a real lack of sophistication in this case, he could have worked by himself, and he's lost control so quickly and failed so quickly on this because he didn't have necessarily the help that he needed and the support that he needed throughout the process.
Do you think that there could have been that he's a distraction on the porch, and that a partner, whoever, a cohort is inside, doing the heavy lifting, if you will, doing the bad stuff to Nancy? Or you can't really tell? Is it guesswork at this point?
In my opinion, it's pretty much guesswork, because I don't have enough information to confidently make a statement like that. If we go back to possibilities, we can play the possibility game all day and all night long and still come up with the wrong answers. But it's all entertaining. It certainly it piques people's interest, and it's through those discussions oftentimes that concepts, ideas, and theories are developed that may not have been developed before as a result of it.
I think you're muted. There it goes.
Sorry. So, Buddy was attacking the wind. We had the back screen.
The noise of my computer.
Yeah, he was attacking your washing machine. So let's talk about. I think Karen, when I left, Karen had asked, "Do you think there's more than one?" What was your answer? I didn't hear it. Could there be more than one?
There could be, but it's speculation.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, we're speculating.
Well, if there's a car,
We don't know.
if there's a car, he's right. I mean, yeah. To your point, yeah. But he's got to get her out of that house.
Yeah.
They got to leave, and to kind of manage her. I mean, we've all gone into this idea of, okay, if it's not a typical elderly SA problem, or he would hurt her right then and there. There is evidence that she was injured because there's blood on the porch that definitely has come back belonging to Nancy Guthrie.
Mm-hmm.
That's been confirmed. The sheriff has put that out to the public. But there's also this other idea now that's been floating around. I'm curious of what your guys' thoughts are going to be on this. I am not in this camp, what I'm going to say here, but it's floating around from some distinguished colleagues that porch guy is one of many, and porch guy is deceased. Okay. I don't find that in my thinking through this thing as a possibility, and I hate to disagree, but I mean, I want to be realistic about this based on experience and et cetera. What say you guys?
Well, if there was that much help and experience, it seems to me, at least initially, that this would have gone much more successfully up front. And it appears to me that they completely lost control from the get-go. And typically that'll happen when there's not enough help. So if there is, I can see him by himself. I can also say maybe he's got one other person possibly that's helping. But again, it's speculation because we just don't have enough information.
Right. Dean?
No, I agree. I think the problem you run into is that once you start down a path without enough information, it seems like it starts multiplying into all kinds of other things that it could be. I mean, when we introduce another person, unless we've got a clear shot as to where we think that's coming from, it can begin to morph into a lot of other things. I mean, you could have so many different reasons why there's other people, everything from the extreme of somebody had a vendetta against her or issue with her, but you could also have it on the other extreme where you've got a situation where there's other people involved because they're casing multiple places, or they're part of a team doing it, and they just weren't good yet. I mean, to me, that's where it really starts getting very slick and slippery, and you start moving into areas. And it's easy to sometimes say, well, I think it's this. But then once you cross to that, then you've got the next set of questions, And I guess where I'm coming at it from more than anything else is I have watched that so many times in some of these cases. And then all of a sudden we get access to what the law enforcement really has, all of the details. And I can step back at that point and go, oh, I understand why people misunderstood all those different things. But having all of that information is so vital once you get past the basic principles. I mean, there's a lot of speculation that she passed away right at 38 or 41 minutes into this, but it's also possible that she wasn't passed away and they took her away from the link to the box that was monitoring it, right? And so and unless she's back to that monitoring of the pacemaker, so all those pieces we just don't have enough information to know.
Right.
I think it's worth noting that when it comes to homicide, I'm thinking of a number of cases that I've either covered as a reporter or know about, or it's in the public arena, where you've had one person was the homicide victim and multiple suspects.
Mhm.
And in those cases, and I can even think of the Michael Vaughn case, where you've got 4 suspects and they're all still alive, right? And that it seems like it would be more unusual to get rid of an accomplice before, the case is solved, rather than what seems to be the case, that they go their separate ways. They're hoping their cohorts don't rat them out. What does your experience tell you about the likelihood of suspects turning against each other and somebody takes somebody out before the case is even really solved?
Yeah. I think there's a higher likelihood of that type of a thing happening if there's a sense of a weak link wherein there's a concern that they may use that as leverage to protect themselves. The other one sensing that this one person will use it as leverage to protect themselves, and that they're a weak link and they need to be removed because they're concerned they're going to disclose what the whole plan was and who was involved. So again, my sense of this, there's not that level of sophistication where you've got a group of people who have planned this thing out together, where they're going to lose control that quickly. She could have been in there and out and finished.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, Greg. I think, this is, Gary describes him as Ralph Cramden, loading up remember the old honeymooners?
Yeah.
Where he put the spaghetti strainer and his, the whole outfit together. that was his impression, and I can't disagree with that one. And the idea of now that they've accomplished a thing, there's a $1.2 million reward
Yeah.
for information in this, and not a single person stepped up and say, "Hey, I need to tell you about that," and which has led to this theory, this idea that even as recently as today, I mean, there's information out there that, hey, that the guy on the porch is no longer with us. When how many times have we sat across the room with this guy and he says, "Yeah, I heard I was dead, so let's talk about that," right? And so I just think that's right now ludicrous speed with to use the Spaceball analogy. Just I think if everybody just kind of slows down, which leads me into my next thought process. Explain the principle of staging and what that means.
Staging is the attempt by the offender to manipulate elements of the crime scene to make it appear as if it's something different than what it was. So, as an example, let's say you have a domestic homicide, and a husband or the boyfriend has attempted to make this look like a sexual assault burglary gone bad. So they manipulate the elements of the crime to make it fit a different crime.
Can truth be staged through lies? That this is from Colleen J. Can truth be staged? That's a great question, man.
Great question. Yeah, I'd say I think it can be concealed.
Yeah.
As particularly the behavioral aspects of that manifest the truth. So that would be my response to that. I think it certainly can be concealed and manipulated, but eventually, if the authorities have the facts, they stick to the facts, and they'll be able to maintain what that truth is.
Dean?
Yeah, to Greg's point, I think if you've got, for example, if the motive is actually to kill the person, but you stage it, let's say it's at a business, but they may stage it to try to look like a robbery, to try to throw people off. I mean, those are the kinds of activities that you start seeing. This case is very interesting because we're still really struggling with trying to get our arms around why this victim at this time in this particular set of circumstances. And that's, I think, the puzzling part of it. And without getting some of that information that helps us move along, again, we're starting to kind of get down the road to other things, like we were talking about, whether or not there was other people involved. That becomes clearer when you can understand motivation and understand why this victim was chosen at that particular time. 84-year-old woman in her home in a very nice neighborhood with this kind of a timeline, all of those things. And there's an answer. It's in there. It's going to be in there. I think where we get frustrated is we can't find it, but because you can't find it right now doesn't mean it's not there. I remember when I went to school for being a coroner's office, I still remember one of my instructors made this comment. He said, it's impossible to go into a crime scene without taking something in and bringing something out. But whether or not you're sophisticated enough and your technology is enough to identify all of those things and see those things, And I think it goes to kind of one of the principles that you teach, Chris, of just sitting, taking so much time in a crime scene to be there with all the other distractions to try to see what's really there, and let the evidence lead you where you need to go. I always use this analogy with people. If I came to your house, I could come in your garage and I could easily show you where all the low spots are in your garage. I just need a bucket of water. And if you let me pour that water out on there, we can watch and the water will flow and we can say, oh, this is a lower spot than there. But if you put things in the way and you create kind of channels and different things, you can make it move all kinds of different ways. And what happens in investigations, I think, is and I think I think Greg or you were saying this earlier, we have these pieces of this puzzle. I think Greg was talking about the puzzle. But we don't have all these other pieces. And we're human beings. We don't like gaps. That's why somebody can say something to you in a conversation and not say everything. And then you later say, yeah, they said all this. Well, they didn't say it. They didn't say certain things, but we want to fill it in. It's a human natural thing to want to fill in. And sometimes it's helpful, but sometimes it can be very, very detrimental to what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that, I try to maintain here, the fact that, we just stay with the victim risk continuum, right, Greg? I mean,
that's
we've talked about from the beginning. And, at this point, obviously, I think with confidence, we can probably say it is definitely someone or somebody within, I love your analogy, the first three tiers, Greg, whoever that's going to be, I've asked questions about, the timeline. I've asked questions about data points on the garage, why certain cars were impounded, why they held those cars, for 40 something hour or whatever, 40 something days, and then of course, that I have to measure that against, my own experience and say, okay, well, this is why I would have done that. Not necessarily, right or wrong, but at the same time, it does cause one to say, okay, where are we at this point? And for me, I'm not of the camp that the gentleman on the porch is deceased. In fact, I think, he could be the weakest link. And at some point, that's the guy that I'm going to try to go after and get him to, like what we used to say, right? Go for the snot.
Mhm.
Right? Get him to cry and the snot comes out of the mouth and he tells us all the things we need to know. Just like Alex Murdoch. I mean, that was a great analogy of going for the snot, which, by the way, he gets a new trial, unfortunately.
Amazing. Yeah.
All right. Life in America. But, just to kind of, tie this up, we've got almost 2 hours here. I haven't left the house. So I'm going to start with Dean. Would you leave the house yet, Dean?
No.
Greg?
No, and I wouldn't leave victimology.
Yeah. And in fact, I was going to say, when it comes to victimology, one of the big mistakes or challenges is that we single source, or maybe 2 or 3 people source the victimology. And the question is, who hasn't been talked to that could give a little bit more detail to her victimology? Because we tend to rely on, and we see this with cases all the time. The visual I always give people is imagine your life is representative of a beach ball with stripes on it. Not all the same size, just, all kinds of different little sizes. And everybody that knows you and interacts with you knows that. So if we talked about you and Karen, for example, Chris, I would go to Karen for a huge, huge piece of stripes of your beach ball. She's going to have insight and other things. But anybody who's going to get a victimology on you better talk to Greg and I, because we're on there. They need to talk to your kids. We need to go back and talk to people that you've worked with in the past. What are your hobbies? What is it that you do? Are you a religious person? What are their, because it's all of those together. And people think, well, then, yeah, it's this big. No, sometimes it's very small. So when we talk about this interaction, maybe there's something that, she came across somebody in a certain context, and that was the little piece. And then that becomes our little thread that we start pulling on and can get there. So
To your point, Dean, that's so interesting because as a reporter, a crime reporter, that's the job of a crime reporter, to try to talk to a victim's inner circle and get it to present some kind of a picture to the public of what goes on. Now, with journalism today, this stuff doesn't even happen anymore. And in this case, we've heard some different things that people close to the case were told not to talk publicly about it. Of course, that's very different than when investigators go in and they're there investigating the case. I'm almost a little envious because they get all this information that obviously they can't make public, but they're putting the case together. And of course, this would come out in court when the case is prosecuted. But to your point, Dean, that's one of the interesting things. Like, this case has been going on in the news for well over, close to 4 months now. And we have such a dim picture of who Nancy Guthrie was.
That's right.
Even with, her famous daughter, Savannah, giving interviews and such, there's been scant information about her. And I guess to your point, Dean, I'm hoping investigators have dove in and have all those details, all the messy details that, to your point, are going to link back to the victimology, which is going to help investigators figure out who could have done this.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I've had it multiple times. People I've known for years, and then something happens, they pass away, and I go to a funeral, and I hear a story about something from their life, from their past. It just blows me out of the water. I had no idea that they, had that experience, or that they were part of that. Chris introduced Greg today, and there's so many things the public knows about, Greg and things that he's done. I work with this man every day, and I've learned things over the years that are great. Just unbelievable things, that he's been involved.
Yeah.
So I think it's really true. And to your point, Savannah, I think the problem there is she is, very well known. She has a public profile. She has all those things. And there's a piece of that. Yes, this Nancy is her mom and all of those things. But my understanding is the family's lived in that house for years.
Yeah, 50-ish years.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole history tied to just that home. It's not like she moved in there 3 years ago and she's new to the neighborhood. So,
right. I did want to ask each of you, maybe a wrap-up question, but which we do too with our panels. Do each of you think that this case can be solved?
Let me just make a mention about the victimology. Why, just as an added perspective, why is the victimology so important? And from so many different sources, as Dean has outlined. Because the more we understand the victim, the more we understand the offender. Because there's a reason why that offender selected that victim. There's a reason why that offender either identified that victim as high risk, medium risk, low risk to themselves, making this should be an easy job. Is it going to be a difficult job? Is there something about the relationship with that victim that appealed to me as an individual, or the offender, meaning the offender? So those things are found only by understanding the victim, because until that occurs, including what we call, looking at the crime scene and the initial contact site. We go through what we refer to as the 10 filters of profiling. All we're left with is an imaginary person there that's responsible. And the only way to put clothes and characteristics on that imaginary person is by understanding the victim, the crime, and all the different aspects of that crime. So we need to pick it apart and take as long as it needs to be in order to acquire that information. Can it be solved? I believe, and which is our philosophy, we believe that all cases can be solved if they continue to work it. Never let a case go cold to the point that it's no longer being worked. So yes, prima donna, what do you want to call it? Innocence, naivete. I believe it can be solved. And something will happen. Circumstances will change with whom was involved. Information will be disclosed, revealed, and it may be done in a way that nobody expects, but it'll happen. I believe it'll happen.
Yep, I agree with that.
Sounds like we just need to be patient.
Unfortunately, that's the justice system.
It's the right one. It's the one that works.
Yeah, and there's nothing speedy about it.
Yeah,
nothing speedy about it.
Hurry up.
We get asked all the time, what makes a case, or what's our definition of a cold case? And when we're no longer working leads or generating new ones, and that can happen very quickly, and it can happen over time. But I think as long as they're continuing to generate leads and they're working them, and then we also get involved. I think that's the other misnomer about the foundation. We've been involved in cases within hours of crimes being committed, because I think I always tell people when they ask about the foundation, I said, we've been all the way to the end of the road, years and years afterwards. And so when you have to walk back up that path, you see all of these different, you look at certain things and you look at cases differently. I can tell you cases I worked years ago in the coroner's office, knowing what we know today and how we approach things. I think any investigator is going to say, man, I would do things differently, because you just learn so many pieces along the way. But I think if they stay focused and stay focused on the facts and the evidence, it's a matter of time, but they'll find it, figure it out.
You can't blot a light bulb.
That's right.
You guys are amazing. And everybody, there's 11,500 people here right now, and hit the links below for the books. We appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to just grab a couple of quick questions here. There's a few of them in here. Let's see here. Actually, it's a comment from Casey. I don't believe Shrub was a blunder by perpetrator. I think he chose it with intent. He knew camera was only live feed, and if Nancy was alerted, she may perceive it as a natural accident, like wind and something stuck by to the cameras. That's an interesting comment, and you could be right. Could be. Anything is possible, just like we were just saying there a second ago. What are your thoughts on the body language of behavior panels? I love the behavior panel. Those guys are amazing. And so my thoughts on them is go watch them. They're unbelievable. If the Nest camera disconnected how could it detect movement at 212? I think that could tell us there's another camera that the authorities probably have visual into, and they have not released it yet. I've never heard if there were any guests at A&T's house that Saturday night. We haven't either. Thank you for that comment. Any footage from Uber ride or picture from the visit? Hopefully, there will be, and that again, it will be another piece of this puzzle, putting it together. Chris, would LE release, hi Julie, the car back to A if evidence of value was found inside? Can't wait to see you and Karen at CrimeCon. The answer is possibly. If they don't have enough to completely connect dots, then of course, if there are lawyers involved behind the scenes, they could pressure law enforcement to release it because they may have gotten evidence that they needed, and then that can go into evidence under a number. And family just stepped over us. Aspiration blood on porch thinking was exactly because all SG said was mommy doesn't have shoes, not mommy's bleeding out. Yeah, that's an interesting comment. Why do you think the 911 call hasn't been released? I can't answer that question. I don't know what the sheriff or what they have on it. There could be some evidence on there that they don't want the public to know about. If we came out of ATs with evidence bag, would you say that puts them on the radar? Because sheriff said family was cleared, which makes it more confusing. It definitely put them on the radar when you have a news crew standing outside filming the authorities taking pictures inside the house and then taking bags outside of the house. That would put anybody on the radar. Anyway, APS.
Can I just comment on that real quick? I think
please hit
just
me.
my thought. We work a lot with not only law enforcement but with families, and I think any word of caution we could give when it comes to families, we need to give them as much latitude as possible under these circumstances. If there's something somebody has done, and we've seen cases where families have been involved, but it comes out in time. But I can tell you, having worked with these families that it's come out later, they had nothing to do with it. I don't think people can truly understand the devastation and pain that comes to a family when people begin to speculate in a direction that there's no evidence for. I'm happy to jump on any evidence ban there is, but just a caution to people to be careful. These are human beings. Always, when you're dealing with family members, I think we've got to be very, very careful with that. So. True statement.
And let's see how it all unfolds. This investigator hasn't left the house. That guy hasn't left the house, and that guy hasn't left the house. And this cuteness is the cuteness in the house.
In charge of the house.
She's in charge of the house. Anything you guys want to say about your books or anything like that before we shut down this guy tonight, guys? And thank you so much for your time for being here this evening. You're so
Thanks
great.
for the invite.
Yeah, it's been great to be with you. Thank you. Appreciate everybody. Hope we didn't embarrass you too much.
Yeah.
No, I took care of that at the wedding with you guys.
It's always great to have you guys here. So thank you again, Greg and Dean, for your time tonight. It's been great.
Most welcome.
All right. Thanks, guys.
And thank you to our audience. We're so grateful to each and every one of you. Please hit that subscribe button and pass this around to everybody. You ready to go to Hawaii?
I am. Are you?
Okay, let's go. Until the next one. Aloha, everybody. See you on the next one. Take care.
Bye.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away, yeah, we're going away. You and me, feeling the sun on my face in a while.